POV. You are a Roman emperor in the year 200, and unlike modern elites, your life is not cushy. Your single most important responsibility sounds simple enough in theory, but is absolutely terrifying to execute. You must feed the 1 million people living in ancient Rome, the largest city in the ancient world by far, every single day. Now, the stakes are incredibly high, not just for Rome, but also for your own safety and well-being as an individual. You see, unlike modern-day rulers who sit in an ivory tower with advanced secret service and military protection, Roman law doesn't have any legal process of succession, meaning that violence was seen as an acceptable tool for change if an emperor wasn't doing his job. Now, once again, you have 1 million mouths to feed, and if you fail for even 1 or 2 weeks, people go hungry, riots erupt, and the Praetorian Guard turns on you. Your reign ends in the exact same way as most emperors who came before you, viciously stabbed to death in the streets. Oh, and just to make this challenge all the more interesting, you have to do this with no synthetic fertilizers, no tractors, no cargo trucks, no refrigeration, no modern-day shipping containers, none of the modern technologies we rely on today that make the food production process much easier. So, how do you feed a city of 1 million people consistently for centuries? How do you prevent famines without all the benefits of modern technology? And how did ancient Rome succeed at all this for over 600 years, where modern capitalist economies still fail to do so today? Welcome to the Cura Annona, the ancient Roman version of universal basic income. Part 1. Communist! So, it's the year 2025, almost 2026 now, and as we all know, the one thing we just can't afford to do no matter what is to make sure everyone has enough food to eat and nobody starves. Of course, we can afford billionaire CEOs with 5 super yachts, we can afford billions of dollars of taxpayer subsidies for corporations, we can even afford the world's first trillionaire at this point. But of course, the one thing that's absolutely off limits to even discuss is making sure everyone has enough food to eat. Because, well, that would be communist. You can't give everyone food for free because, well, that would be communist. And as we all know, communism has never worked. If we gave everyone free food, we're just going to destroy incentives, drive up inflation, which will cause price controls, empty shelves, and breadlines. Just look at what happened in the Soviet Union, and Cuba, and North Korea, and every communist country. There's only one problem with this argument that capitalist defenders can never seem to address. This literally happens in every capitalist country too. The Great Depression happened in the same era as the Soviet Union and was a direct result of the excesses of capitalism. You saw the exact same thing. Massive bread lines and soup lines extending for several neighborhood blocks, mass starvation and famines. There's even stories of families having to split one meatball amongst 8 children as a direct result of the consequences of capitalism. If you were to look at the UN report of all the countries facing the worst food shortages today, they're literally all capitalist countries. The entire success story of capitalism is falsely founded on a massive logical fallacy known as survivorship bias. People think America and Western Europe are the only capitalist countries in the world, but they're not. Haiti, Somalia, and Afghanistan are just as much capitalist countries as America is. Not that America is even doing that great when it comes to feeding their own citizens anymore. The insane greed of capitalist corporations has spiked grocery prices to such unbearable levels that you're seeing videos of people working full-time jobs still having to wait hours in line at food banks today in 2025. As this quote put it perfectly, everything they warned us would happen under communism is happening under capitalism. So, if communism isn't the answer and neither is capitalism, what is? The idea that no one should starve in this age of unprecedented global wealth and prosperity shouldn't be remotely controversial. With the rapid advancement of AI and robotics, the concept of universal basic income is rapidly gaining steam. This is something that, as you all know, I've been a massive advocate for here on this channel. But would it actually work? I mean, after all, it's a radical idea that is sure to be extremely expensive and has never been tried before, right? Or what if it isn't? What if in fact it has been tried before? And not only did it worked spectacularly, light years better than both communism or capitalism. What if it successfully fed the most prosperous civilization in all of human history for over 600 years? And what if we're right on the verge of being able to implement something extremely similar right now? And what if you, a young Zoomer or millennial watching this video, could directly help make this happen? This is the story of the Cura Annona. Part 2. The Cura Annona. The year is 150 BCE, and the population of Rome has absolutely exploded. In a short amount of time, Rome went from a fairly small town to a massive, sprawling megacity. Rome was a victim of its own success. After a series of successful conquests, rural populations migrated to the city en masse, and Rome simply got too big, too fast. The ramifications of this will sound very familiar to you as a Gen Z or millennial watching this right now. Rome had mass unemployment, a housing crisis, soaring grain prices, and frequent food shortages. Rome looked a lot like a modern capitalist country back then. No social safety nets and a 100% dependence on private merchants to feed a city of 1 million people. These private merchants simply couldn't handle the city's massive demands, and as a result, Rome was constantly plagued by food shortages and violent, chaotic riots. Once again, everything they told you would happen under communism is literally happening under capitalism. It was at this time when the Roman elites learned a very harsh lesson. Free stuff is not to be seen as a shameful welfare handout. Free stuff is what keeps society from collapsing into coups, riots, and total chaos. The Roman elites eventually learned the hard way that if the state doesn't feed the people will unapologetically burn the state to the ground. Gradually, they begin rolling in subsidized grain rations, which gives the working poor stable food access at well below market rates. It works immediately. By guaranteeing everyone the basic survival need of food, society finally begins to stabilize. The program works so well that by 58 BCE, the populist Roman politician Publius Clodius Pulcher takes the final leap and passes a groundbreaking program known as the Cura Annona. This gave free grain rations for every male citizen unconditionally with no strings attached, just like UBI. By the year 27 BCE, the Emperor Augustus makes the Cura Annona a permanent government institution. Intricate supply lines from Egypt are established. Massive Roman granaries known as Herrea are built. And over time, the program becomes so popular and so successful that it's expanded to include olive oil, pork, and even occasionally wine. Your next question at this point is probably, well, this sounds great and all, but who's paying for all this? And the answer is very simple. Wealthy Roman citizens were forced to fund public services like the Cura Annona as a civic duty. Unlike in modern capitalism, the top 1% couldn't opt out. But wait, according to capitalists, this shouldn't be possible. If you take away from the wealthy to give people free stuff, you'll destroy incentives. The rich will all flee. People will become lazy and no one will work. You'll get breadlines and empty shelves just like in the Soviet Union. These young kids are so naive and just never learn from history. And yet, the actual historical evidence shows documented proof that they're literally just projecting their own historical ignorance onto you when they tell you this. The Cura Annona was by far the closest thing to UBI we've ever tried in human history. Not only did it not cause all the apocalyptic no-food scenarios capitalists love to dream up in their heads, it literally fed the most prosperous civilization in all of human history for over 600 years. Let's find out why. Hey guys, we set out on a mission during the summer to take down the biggest, most vile Gen Z hater, the Angry Guy. A straight up horrible human being who hates Gen Z so much, he even celebrates them dying. Thanks to you, we've gained a ton of ground on him over the summer, and we've set a new goal to surpass him in subscribers and defeat him once and for all by the end of the year. So, if you're new here and enjoying this content, definitely consider subscribing and helping us take down the biggest, most evil, final boss Gen Z hater. With your help, we can absolutely do this. Part 3. The economics of Roman UBI. So, calling everyone who disagrees with you a communist is a very easy way to quickly shut down dissent because of how historically charged that word is. But there's a problem. At some point, you become overly reliant on shouting Soviet breadlines as a meme that you never bother to actually study the historical and economic nuances behind why that actually happened. To them, UBI is communist, and communism never works, which is why UBI would never work. Except both the Roman Empire and countless modern UBI studies have proven it actually works very well. When confronted with the facts and evidence, you're now in a bit of a pickle. Since UBI has been proven to work, either UBI isn't communist or communism has in fact worked. Which one is it? Well, let's do a fair, honest, and objective breakdown of the communist system versus the Cura Annona to see which one is more similar to UBI. Now, the key signature feature of socialism or communism is to seize the means of production. This is literally explicitly stated by Karl Marx himself many times. And that's what the Soviet Union did. The state owned the entire production process from the farms to the supply chains and grocery stores. The Cura Annona, on the other hand, saw the Roman Empire subsidize the consumption side of the equation, but not the production side. As a result, the Egyptian farmers who farmed the grain still had market-driven incentives to grow and produce. As a matter of fact, because the Roman state guaranteed purchases and quotas, they actually had far better job stability than modern farmers do today under capitalism. The state-subsidized purchases meant that Egyptian farmers in the Roman Empire didn't have to deal with the insane capitalist practices of price gouging, market volatility, sudden drops in wages, and brutal competition that modern farmers constantly have to deal with. When compared side by side with UBI, you'll see that UBI almost has everything in common with the Cura Annona, and very little, if not nothing at all, in common with the Soviet command economy. And this is where the stars begin to align. The Cura Annona, while not exactly a UBI, was absolutely the closest thing to it we've ever tried in history. Barring times of extreme crisis and natural disasters, it totally fed the massive Roman population and ended hunger within Rome. The Cura Annona was a big part of the Pax Romana, which you've heard of before, an unprecedented 200 consecutive years of peace and prosperity in ancient Rome, which has never been repeated before or since. Modern capitalism can't even go 7 to 10 years without imploding in on itself with yet another cyclical recession. The year 117 AD marks the absolute peak of the over 1,000 years of the Roman Empire. This is when Rome achieved its greatest territorial expanse and accounted for over 33% of the entire world's population. The emperor at the time was Trajan. He's known for being what we call today one of the 5 good emperors. Trajan was essentially the ancient Roman version of Andrew Yang. When Trajan came into power, he wasn't satisfied with the Cura Annona alone. He added another major UBI program on top of that. Part 4. The Alimenta. One big reason we're gaslit into believing UBI wouldn't work is because of inflation. You've definitely heard this used against you before. Oh, if you give everyone $1,000 a month, your rent is just going to go up $1,000 a month. Yet what if I told you that ancient Rome 2,000 years ago gave every poor child in Italy a basic monthly stipend to cover all their basic living expenses? Food, clothes, education, and more. And they did all this without increasing inflation at all. Today, we're told that this would cause rampant inflation, that everyone will become lazy, that no one will work, and yeah, we'll get communist-era breadlines again. And yet, we see the actual historical evidence shows the exact opposite. The Alimenta lifted thousands of families out of poverty. It was extremely popular during the Pax Romana. It even won over the Roman elites over time. The Roman Senate even gave Trajan the title of Best Ruler or Optimus Princeps, a title that has stuck with him to this day, 2,000 years later. But wait, let's answer the question, how was he able to do this without causing inflation? The Alimenta program actually wasn't initially created by Trajan. That honor goes to Nerva, the emperor who preceded him and the first of the 5 good emperors. It was initially funded by Nerva via the plunder of the Dacian Wars. When Trajan took over, he saw all the undeniably positive benefits, and so he decided to massively expand it and turn it into a long-term vision. But there was just one problem. The spoils of the Dacian Wars were not going to last forever, so he needed to find a new way to pay for it. His solution was to impose a 5% interest on loans and estate taxes for wealthy landowners. This proves that critics of UBI who claim it will inherently cause inflation are totally economically illiterate on the causes of inflation itself. Inflation goes up if the total money supply in circulation goes up. It's caused mainly by money printing and increasing the overall money supply in circulation. Because the alimenta did not require an increase in total money supply, it did not cause inflation, and that's really all there is to it. As a matter of fact, prices remained shockingly stable throughout the entire 200-year period of the Pax Romana. Modern capitalism, on the other hand, can't even maintain stable food prices for 200 days. When the alimenta and Cura Annona guaranteed basic living expenses, markets actually had to offer reasonable prices for food, otherwise people can simply live off the Annona. Meanwhile, today, we're paying $8 for eggs and $100 every trip to the grocery store because under modern capitalism without UBI, corporations can price gouge food as high as they want, and there's really nothing we can do about it. We're forced to buy their products, otherwise we'll starve. This is when you realize every criticism of UBI is literally just a capitalist projection. They'll tell you that UBI will lead to communist-era breadlines when under their own capitalist system, food bank usage has spiked 70% since 2021. They'll tell you it'll cause inflation when it's literally their own capitalist policies causing $2,000 per month for rent and $20 for a sandwich. They'll tell you that we can't raise the minimum wage because it'll make the price of a burger $23 as well. And now under capitalism, a burger already costs $23 and our wages haven't even gone up at all to compensate. Capitalism actually causes the worst form of inflation because literally everything inflates except for your own wages. So Gen Z is the generation who's by far most in favor of UBI, and this topic is rapidly gaining steam again with AI displacing so many jobs as we speak. So here comes the big $1 million question. Could Gen Z finish the mission the ancient Romans started 2,000 years ago and end world hunger and poverty for good? Conclusion. Could Gen Z be the generation that ends world hunger and poverty? Well, I certainly think so, which is why I made this video for you. We certainly do have enough resources to feed the entire world population easily. The problem is we choose not to distribute it fairly because of capitalist brainwashing. And I've realized that a massive pillar that capitalist brainwashing is built upon is using Red Scare Cold War tactics to gaslight you. It'll cause breadlines, no one will work, everyone will be lazy, communism has never worked, and you kids never learn from history. And once again, this is just another capitalist projection of their own historical and economic ignorance. Soviet-era policies were not anything remotely close to UBI. Ancient Rome actually had the closest thing we've ever tried to UBI, and it worked wonderfully for over 600 years. Rome flourished and prospered and hit the peak of the Pax Romana under these policies. They invented incredible technologies, built beautiful architecture, and left a timeless cultural imprint that's still baked into our collective consciousness today. So much for making people lazy, right? The fight to end poverty and hunger isn't a logistical one anymore. It's an ideological one. We have enough resources to feed everyone. We just choose not to because we've been gaslit and brainwashed by capitalist propaganda. Once again, primarily built upon the pillar of Cold War Red Scare tactics. But with this knowledge and information you learned from this video, you can now punch back with a far more visceral historical example of your own that everybody respects. The Roman Empire. Not only is it a more glamorous comparison, it's straight up more historically and economically accurate as well. As you just saw, the actual economics of UBI are almost exactly like that of ancient Rome and absolutely nothing like the USSR. Now, if you like this historical comparison video, you're definitely going to want to watch this one right here about how hunter-gatherers totally annihilate the capitalist ethos as well. Maybe even better than the Romans do. Check it out. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching.